All right. Hi, welcome to Call It Doctor. I'll give a quick uh, discussion of HDF5 2.0, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. So, for people who do not know, we have adapted um, our release schedule here. It used to be that this big green bar at the bottom was 116, and we have decided that we are not going to be releasing a 116. We're going to be releasing 2.0. Same release schedule, be in March. So it's being worked on now, and it'll be released at the end of March, usual release time, and then we'll have another release, probably 2.1.0 at the end of September. So this will bring us to semantic versioning. So where we have major, minor, patch, not important. One major, minor, and sometimes there's a patch. So that'll be nice. I think people who maintain libraries will be very happy for that. Um, so yeah, so what are we going to have in there? So, underneath here, I've got this brief list, which is we are going to drop the auto tools. I will probably do that after I get back from SC. So like mid-November, the auto tools will go away and will be CMake only. I do want to drop the C++ API. I'm going to wait a little longer to do that to give people a chance to yell at me about my decision to remove that. It's a C++ 98 wrapper that has not been very well maintained. It's been updated so that it behaves better under C11, but it's C++ 11. It's still fundamentally an old school um, C++ wrapper, though. So we'll remove it. I mean, it could, in theory, be put into a separate repo, but I don't really want to use our company's resources to maintain that anymore. So if people want to turn that into a community project, they're more than welcome to. We've also removed the GIF or GIF tools, however you want to pronounce that. Those had some unfixed CVE issues in them, and just were not a really good fit for being in a library repository. Those could also be spun off if people really wanted them to be, but we're not going to maintain those anymore. We'll be adding complex number support. We'll be updating the library defaults, cache sizes, things like that, to better match modern hardware instead of 1997 hardware. And yeah, and using semantic versioning. Now, a full list of everything is here, right? So, GitHub has this wiki here, and that link at the bottom there will take you to the wiki to this page, to HDF5 2.0 planning. So it's a draft. We're still working on a full list of what we hope to get into this. The list that you see here, well, it's somewhat ambitious, right? I tend to try to overschedule stuff. But some of this may not make it in. We'll see, right? But the biggest things are semantic versioning, the library defaults, the complex number support, and the dropping the things. But what we also have in here is, so let me crack one of these open. And we're in this beta where you can create sub issues in GitHub. And so I've created these top level things, right, which are all linked to from here, right? These are like the things that we intend to focus on for this next release, right? So CMake, some CI and testing improvements, parallel HDF5, there's some improvements there we want to make. Some stuff with compression, bugs that cause crashes or memory issues. We try and fix as many of those as possible. There's some library behavior bugs that we have, some improvements for cloud optimized HDF5, some stuff that deals with floating points, some stuff that deals with Windows, then documentation and miscellaneous. And so these things are all organized. And if you look at like our issues page here, you can see them, right? They're these top level things. And so if you break one of these open, it looks like this. Then it has all the individual things in it, right? And so it's not really going to be as big of a giant major new features. I mean, like when we released 112, that had the virtual object layer in it. 114 had a bunch of ECP features in it. This is not going to have big features like that in it. It's really, the philosophy is still kind of the same, that we're releasing this because we want to get complex number support out, and that requires a major version bump. But in the past, I was telling people I want to make this as easy as possible to upgrade from 114, and that I've dropped. That I do want to make some changes to the library that we've wanted to make for a long time. Things like dropping the auto tools, right? Because they're becoming increasingly difficult to support. So there will be some changes. There will be some API changes. There will be a few things that will be versioned. Um, not major changes. These are like smaller, more obscure changes. There'll be changes to the vol structures. There may be changes to the VFD structures. So some things are changing. This is a true major release. there will be some things that you'll have to pay attention to if you're going to be upgrading from 1.14. And one of the things I do want to produce to be ready when we release HDF5 2.0 in the spring is to have a migration guide that will have like a version by version list of the changes that you need to make to upgrade your code to different versions of the library. So if you're going from 110, there'll be a section that how do you go from 110 to 112? How do you go from 112 to 14? How do you go from 114 to 2.0? And by going through that step by step, you should be able to update your code. Because I think that right now that's kind of a a process that is can be difficult for some people. They don't really have a lot of visibility into all the changes that we've made and what you should do to update. So I'd like to fix that. So that's what I've got. So if people have ideas about stuff, if there's things that that are not listed in this 2.0 planning document here that people think that we should be focusing on, I'm all ears. This is still early in the planning process. We can still, kind of reorganize what we're going to focus on. But these are the things. I've got some justification in here for things for like why I consider this an important thing. But one of the things I would like to do with HDF5 2.0 is we've had a couple of rough edges on HDF5 that have existed for a very long time, some of which reflects its origins, right? Like, the Windows problems and stuff like that. We really came from a POSIX-oriented world, and so Windows was kind of a second-class citizen. I want to change that. But yeah, so thoughts, ideas, comments?
In that list you had, where you had like checks and circles with green dots a second ago,
These
what
are,
were the different? Yeah. So
oh,
what?
these are like the kind of the GitHub things where this is open
Oh,
here,
okay.
and then these are the ones that are closed. So this has already been fixed. So
Right.
if you look here at like let's see, let's
Yeah.
go to open up the issues here. There's these milestones, right? And so you can click on this, and there's two of them. So you can see that we're 11% complete on like our 2.0 milestone. And if you click on this, this will give you the full list of all the
Yeah.
issues that we have. Now, unfortunately, there's some stuff that's not quite in here yet. I have some stuff on our internal Confluence um, stuff that to where I have some things I want to put in here. Like I want to be able to support bit grooming. I think that's an important thing. It's in NetCDF, but we should have it in the library. Um, so there's some things that will be added here as issues. In general, we've had, for the most part, when we move to GitHub, we've mostly used issues as a place for people to report bugs and not as a place where we're going to put kind of bigger things like, hey, here's a new feature we're going to add to this. But as a part of getting this 2.0 release out the door, I want to try to do the best job that we can to do as much of this stuff in public to where people can kind of see what we're going to be releasing, right? And you get a kind of a big picture view of what's coming. It's hard because GitHub, GitHub's great. I'm glad we have it, and I'm glad that we can like do all our CI on it for free and stuff. But its project management capabilities are not great. It's very difficult to kind of get a good feel for kind of like what's going on in a project. So we're still trying to figure that out. Like, how do we do that in a way that's transparent and understandable? Like, I mean, the issues are nice because, like, looking at this, it's kind of hard to see what we consider important. And so I'm hoping that like this wiki page here and these meta issues are going to make it easier to see what we care about going forward.
Okay. So that list above was a subset of the total number of issues.
Yeah, this here, like the things that are in here are the things
Sub
that
issues.
are,
Sure.
yeah,
Okay.
I
Got it.
manually added these to like the
Okay.
CMake.
Yeah, that second one kind of jumps out at me because I think I had a put in a bug request years ago about .mod files before GitHub was even part of it. The
Mm.
landscape. I don't know. We're using
Yeah.
Jira or something like that at the
Yeah,
time.
we have Jira and there's still a bunch of open issues and stuff in there, and some of those things have kind of made their way over to GitHub, but not really. I mean, there's a lot of things in Jira. Jira was essentially a scissor short for a long time, and so there's many things that we haven't fully gone through there. Plus, it's unclear if those things are even still issues for people, and in many cases, those things are years old, and people have moved on, and if I try to email them, they're not going to exist anymore. So, but if you're still having issues, and I assume that if people are still having issues with something in HDF5, they'll report it as a GitHub issue. So I've been less concerned with Jira.
Yeah, I haven't gotten too into using GitHub. I guess I should probably start doing that.
It's nice because it's public. And it's how like all these like public projects are all connected together. And so it's quite nice that way. We really enjoy being a part of GitHub. Yeah, like when people there's like as an example, we look at like the code. There was one that I like fixed the other day. I don't know if they've so let's see here. So somebody reported like this, right? So this is an issue um in our HDF5, right? And so let's see, did they get back to us? They did not. But like you can see, like, here, this is the Rust, right? And they use MinGW to build their stuff, and they were having a problem. I can just go look over there, and it's all GitHub, and I kind of understand what they're, how this stuff works and what they're reporting and stuff. So it's a nice social way of producing software, I think. Kind of like links everything together. I think like if you like were to sum up, besides the complex number support and dropping a couple of things, what I really want is to this release to be about is quality, is to fix some of these like kind of like long-standing, we've had some issues that have hung around in GitHub for a long time. We just haven't had the people to go work on it. And so what I want to do is over this next like 5 months is to make sure that people have some time to go fix some of these issues. And we've done other stuff too. We've done a lot of automation and reduce the cost of doing a lot of things, right? Like, we have more CI, and so we spend less time on like kind of spinning our wheels work and a lot more time now, I think, on actually like fixing issues and stuff. And so that's a big change. Any other questions, comments? Are people sad about losing the autotools? They sad about the C++ wrappers?
Uh, Dana, no, I think removing the C++, that's comes under the addition by subtraction because I think it cleans things up and allows C++ to develop in different ways. It's highly dependent oftentimes on a lot of other criteria that people use to determine what makes a good C++ API. Sometimes it's dependent upon the ecosystem that it's being written in. So I think that's a really good cleanup move too.
Yeah, the reason I decided to drop them is because there's alternatives out there now. There's those
Yes.
header only implementations like High5 they're header only, they're modern C++, they're like C++14 or 17. They're pretty high quality. And so, and in fact, one of the things I've asked like our testing guys to do is to start testing HDF5 with High5 in a GitHub action, so we can kind of keep an eye on that and make sure that if we change stuff, if stuff breaks, we can alert them. And so, and that's one of the things that's nice about being on GitHub too, is that's really easy to pull other people's stuff in, build it, and then use it. And so that's been very, very handy. It's like we're kind of doing ecosystem maintenance, right? If we change something in the library, suddenly all our CI breaks because we're testing like Julia wrappers and netcdf and things like that. And so whenever something breaks, I immediately know I can go hassle the developers and say, hey, this is coming. And so I think it makes it easier for an ecosystem to kind of evolve without, constantly being broken as things change. It's very nice.
Yes, and I'd also add, Stephen Varga did some nice work there with
Mm-hmm.
respect
Yep.
to
Yep.
C++ stuff.
Yeah, I can't remember what his is called. But there's another one, yeah, that's that he has that's header only. I think his is the one that's C++17, so it's got a more modern
Yes,
Q2.
yes, and he did some additional stuff beyond the C++ header only, but it was nice, it was really nice work.
Yeah, and when it comes to like our elderly C++ wrappers, it got to the point where it's like, well, I either want to update them so that they're, better quality and, hew more to modern C++, which has changed markedly, since the C++ 98 days. But is it really like the best use of the resources I have available? And I decided the answer is no, is that I would rather drop the C++ wrappers, let C++ be handled by other people who are much more plugged into the C++ community and like how that should be, how HDF5 should be wrapped. Let other people handle it. I think that's basically true. I mean, I guess we'll keep the Java stuff around. I don't really, we need that for HDFU. And Fortran, I think, yeah, it's fine to keep that in the library. That's a very thin wrapper anyway. Um, but for other stuff, like I'm happy to have other stuff be in other repos. Like H5 Pi is off by itself and does its own thing, and we're in communication with them. We work with them, but I think it's fine for language wrappers to be managed separately by language experts and ecosystem experts from that community. And the timing of like removing like the C++ wrappers, I'll probably wait for a little bit after I get rid of the autotools. Maybe in December.
Yes, okay.
Hey, Dana, I don't know if this was discussed since I just joined, but the H5 Pi folks are currently sitting around deciding if they want to go back to 114.3 or if, we're going to be able to give them something fixable soon. So I was wondering if we can think about making a decision on that fairly soon.
Yeah, so one of the things that we don't have good testing for is Windows Unicode. And just because, I mean, I'd have to set up, like, I have to have a place to run CI that doesn't use a Latin character system. And so it's kind of difficult for me to like maintain Japanese Windows, for example. And that's I think the one that we have probably the greatest difficulty with, because in Japan, from what I understand, there's a lot of reliance on code pages. That is not true of other places, of other countries. And so we've hacked around inside of if we look at like the system code and stuff, I think is where we have all that the platform independent stuff for. So we have some stuff in here where we swap out. There's like some special open calls that we have in here where we try to use the Win32 Unicode stuff to open stuff. I'm trying to find it here. But we try to do the right thing under the hood. And when we do this, like, people send us patches and they're like, this is a problem and this fixes the problem. And I have to decide like, well, I don't have any testing for this. And so do I accept this? And so usually what we'll do is I'll let it slide in and I'll just ask them like, hey, does this fix your problem? And they'll say yes. But then it turns out it breaks something for somebody else. And for example, we had problems with this for a long time with MinGW because we didn't have any MinGW testing set up. And so people would give us MinGW patches, they would kind of work, but then they would break some other thing and they would break again because we would rearrange the Windows ifdefs, and then suddenly stuff wouldn't work on MinGW anymore. Well, now we have MinGW testing, and so that shouldn't be a problem going forward. And then that's what I want to do for Unicode, is to set some CI up somehow to really test this stuff. And we had problems like even early on. There was a time where I adapted it to do Windows Unicode stuff, and it would work for me on my local machine to where I could load a file that had Chinese characters in it, and it was great and it worked fine. But the problem was when I tried to get that to set up some simple tests in CTest on with CMake, it couldn't copy the files around. It would complain that that file didn't exist, and I think it was because I didn't have byte order marks in the text file that I was using to like copy stuff around, right? The CMake list or the CMake test, that text file did not have the byte order marks, and so it was not properly interpreting the Unicode. So there's all these weird sharp edges that you trip over. And that worked, but then it had the code pages problem, and then it looks like I fixed the code pages problem, and now it's breaking H5 Pi. And so we really need to come up with a strategy for testing this. And it's kind of a problem. Like how do on a GitHub runner, how do I install Japanese Windows? Like I just don't know how to do that. And we can do that locally. We have an MSDN subscription. We can create like something that runs in a VM. But like, how do I manage that system? Do I have to sit there with my phone and point that at the screen and with Google Translate turned on to like read all the error boxes? I don't know, right? Like it's really challenging. So that's something I want to fix. And if we do get a fix in there, one of the things that's come up is, do we have a 1.14.6 release? And we may do so. That if that's really a big deal, if people are going to have a difficult time updating it to 2.0, it's worth having a 1.14.6 release. Now, the 1.14.6 release, if it happens, is not going to be like a normal HDF5 release. It's really going to be a patch release. We're not going to call it a patch release because apparently that causes a lot of problems. We have a fourth number, and that's the patch number, as just a problem of us not using semantic versioning. I would just do a 1.14.6 release, but it would be just it'd be a few patches cherry picked into the 1.14.5 branch, and then we click the release button again after bumping the version numbers, and that's it. It would not be a major thing. It would just be a small thing. And so I will definitely consider that, because I don't think it's a lot of resources for us to do such a release. But I don't know how quickly we're going to get to fixing H5Pi's problem in a way that if we're going to fix this, I want to fix this in a way that I feel good about it, that I know that we have fixed the problem for real, and that we have CI to make sure it doesn't break, because it's really frustrating when we have this constant when there's no CI, it's going to break over and over and over again. Especially since nobody in the company really dog foods it, right? We don't really internally. I'm not saving files with Japanese characters or Devanagari script or Hangul or anything like that, right? So, but I consider this an important thing to fix, because of Windows is a very internationalized operating system. Program files is an internationalized path, right? That if you have your name in your local script, and it's going to be, your user's path is going to have your username, which may be in a non-Latin character set. And so that's really important for us to be able to find files there and stuff like that. Because when you I come from desktop instrumentation, and when you get a medical device, it's gonna have a Windows machine next to it. It's not gonna have a Mac. It's not gonna have a Linux box. So it's an important international market that we're kind of missing out on. And so I really do want to fix this. Is it gonna happen with SC coming up, and then Thanksgiving, and then the holidays? How long is it going to be before we have time to sit down and really fix this? I just don't know. Maybe
the issue with the H5Pi folks is they really want to upgrade to 1.14.5 or later, because there's an important fix for a memory leak in that release for them. But now they're sitting here wondering if they're just going to basically patch out the change that we made for the unit code and release that as their kind of own variant of HDF5. They really don't want to do that, but they're sitting there wondering if they're going to have a next release that will work for them.
Right, but I don't want to I don't want to do a 1.14.6 release that has just that one fix in it, and then that undoes the thing that makes something work for some other person. I really if we're gonna fix the problem, let them do their patch, right? And let's actually, if we're gonna put anything out, we should really fix the problem. We should not be putting out a different Band-Aid that kind of fixes one problem but creates a different one. Because that's gonna drive people nuts. We're okay, well now I've got 1.14.5 worked for me, but I updated 1.14.6 and I went back to not working. That's just gonna drive people bonkers. And so we need to fix this. And there's ways of doing it, clearly, but we just, without having a system to test on, it's thought experiment debugging, right? Which is really difficult. And because it's so tied into the system, it's not like I can write some CI and then test it on my local Windows desktop and just see if it works, because like it may not work on a system where the code pages are different. It may not work on a system that like is, true Chinese Windows. So it's gonna require some thought.
Okay, well, if we think it'll take a while before we can get to it, then I mean, I can just let them know that it's probably best for them to go forward just reverting that PR if they want to release it that way.
Yeah, I would source patch it, right? If people are as a part of their build process, right? If they're building HDF5 under the hood, then I would source patch it.
Since
Okay.
we're all here, I had a different question, very different, not about the releases. Does anyone have any objections to updating the CMake required for building, this is very specific, the GPU direct storage virtual file driver? There's some internal commentary that is asking me, oh, please update this required CMake version up to X.
Which number? That's X.
Yeah, let me look at it. 326.
Is there any
One of
particular reason or like feature being used out of it?
We have an internal, trying to be public, but it's not yet, project that really basically requires CMake 326. And well, anything over 322 would be okay, but the peak benefit is 326. And they're depending on this, right? It's an NVIDIA kind of software project, and they really want optimized IO from GPU memory, and they want to rely on the GDS VFT, but since the rest of the project requires a higher version of CMake and GDS requires a lower version, they're getting caught kind of downgrading the rest of their stuff so that they can build it.
What version is the GDS VFT?
Shouldn't CMake not care? I mean, if they have 326 and they're using it and the GDS VFT only requires minimum 318, I mean, I don't have any problem with changing it to 326, but they can also check for the CMake version and put their conditional whatever behind it if they need to add anything to the GDS VFT, but otherwise there shouldn't really be any downgrading going on.
Yeah, I can get more details, but there was a very strong need. Let me see, what is this? This needs to be because, sorry, I'm trying to reading this on the fly.
I'm pretty much the main person maintaining it at the moment, though. So, I mean, if somebody wanted to create a PR and just give, any rationale for it, I think it would be fine.
Okay, so this is a bug with an older version of something. I can continue to track it down, but yeah, I'll just send in a PR for it and we'll bump it. And no one else will complain because it's mostly me on this side.
I mean, just in general, I feel like there's always this tension in CMake between them having new features and us wanting to bump the versions so that we can take advantage of those new features versus people are on systems where the CMake does not get updated often, like HPC systems where the CMake version may lag. And so, they don't want us to update because then they can't build because it'll complain that
Right. I mean, I get
high
it
enough.
too.
So
It's the current
usually,
CMake version.
yeah, usually what I've gone with is that I whatever you can get on whatever the latest Ubuntu LTS is like that's fine. right? Because that's going to kind of minimize complaints. If you start going past that, then people have to build CMake themselves or like, add a bunch of like alternative package managers, and they don't want to do that. So as long as they can get it from like, kind of what's considered, a widely available CMake version on, whatever a popular distro is usually like fine. I have no idea like what's considered okay now. I mean, because Alan's asked me to bump up 3.18 to something newer.
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I can find it. Someone sent me a link the other day that you could search for the versions, default versions of software across different Linux distributions, which was really handy. But yeah, even switching to 3.18 was problematic because some of the HPC machines were on 3.17 or older.
Right.
Yeah,
I think they're better now, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, I'm trying to look, and it looks like I don't know what dates on this. Definitely up to 331. So 326 isn't like bumping to the top of the tree or anything.
But how often do they release new versions?
Yeah, I was trying to find a date on this. I can't find a date.
I feel like they have multiple releases per year, so it's not like, 6 version numbers is 3 years ago.
Could be. Just don't have any date.
Is there a Gleam in here? Like, see when this was last updated.
I can look at the releases, but they didn't like throw a date on them.
Got Gleam. So when did we change this line? This line changed 2 years ago.
So 326. Yeah, they do have them like quarterly-ish. So this was in March of 2023.
So if we want to, where did you want 26?
Yeah.
Did 26.0 come out? $26.0 came out March 2023.
Yeah, that's right.
Like 2 years old.
Yeah, really a year and a half, but yeah.
Oh, it'd be 2 years.
What about 2022? That was another one they might be willing to do, right? It's the oldest. Assuming it's quarterly, that would be. Actually, that's even older. That's 3 years old, so it's November of 21.
So the latest LTS, I think, is on 328. The 2204 LTS was on 322.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, well, let me, I can continue this on Slack with y'all, and I'll Slack these guys and say, hey, what about just 322? Because we don't want to bump it too far.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do that. I'll take it offline. Thanks.
I mean, I've heard that a bunch of 24s has been a mess. So I think a lot of people are still on 22. Like I can't run 24. The graphics drivers are such a mess that like it won't. It's completely blank when I fire it up.
I think most of our HPC machines would have 323 available, at least.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? That might be
good enough. Like, what's my version? I don't even know. I'm on 27. And I'm running 22.
I'm on 30. Back.
Yeah. So I think any of those versions would probably be okay as long as, I mean, you just got to figure out what the various
Okay, well, let's just go for 23 since Larry's kind of given a little bit more backing with a real opinion about the systems. I'll suggest that and we can chat about it.
Cool. We might want to talk to Alan. see what, he's
I mean, it's really
done
only
certain things that for certain versions.
yeah, well, that's really is only going to affect machines where there's an NVIDIA GPU. I mean, it's not
Mhm.
important for anything else. Okay, well, sorry, yeah, I'm just, like I said, take this off functions.
And we can try also, like, I mean, just internally for HDF5's use, we can try bumping it to 3.2.3 and then let's see what C dash does. And if C dash freaks out, then we can think about downgrading that. But the GPU VFD is very specialized.
Yeah, so, I mean, the places where this goes are different, right?
Yeah,
They're
I'm less
not
concerned
in,
about
not
that.
in any CI, they're not going to be in any CI because they're not running on a GPU anymore.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, we're at the top of the hour.
Mhm.
Thanks everyone for coming. Again, if you have any comments, questions about HDF5 2.0, still early. So now is the time to
Yeah,
feel free to ask me directly.
I have a quick question before we go. So the CMake has been around for a while though in HDF5, so we could
Yes.
transition our existing installs could be transitioned, and then we would be prepared for the next version.
That is correct. Keep in mind, though, that one of the things that we are doing is we are making sure that all this, the CMake stuff has evolved. And so, like not everything has like uniform prefixes, for example. So there will be some options and stuff that change name as we go into 2.0. So
Is it possible to make a Rosetta Stone doc that said, if you use this flag, this is what it means in CMake?
yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, it's part of that like that the migration guide for updating versions. One of the things that I want to have as well is a CMake to autotools, equivalence, right? Because I mean, I'm an autotools person. I grew up with the autotools. I'm older, right? So that was like what I learned. CMake's new to me. I don't like typing capital letters. I like doing command line stuff. Anyway, so yeah, it'd be nice to have an equivalence for how stuff works.
Yeah, exactly. I got a quick reply back. They say 323 is fine.
Okay.
I'll do that. Thanks.
Yeah. It'd just be nice to have that kind of uniform across like all the HDF5C.
Yeah, anything later would be great, as the other requirements allow from everything else. Sure. But
Also, just if everybody's here, that we're going to be requiring C11 for HDF5 2.0. So that's already enshrined in the in the build files. So all right, cool. Thanks for coming, everyone. And we'll see you another month.
And John Reedy will be here next week. So thanks everyone for coming.
Bye.